Do-do-do-do-do. Bum, bum, bum. Hello, peoples.
Hi.
How's everyone doing?
Doing good, man.
Good. A little
Okay. A little who?
a little tired.
Yeah? What
Yeah.
from?
I had a
Wrestling with all your demons or?
no, I had a funeral today.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, so
Sorry.
that's a little draining.
Sure.
Mhm.
Okay.
Recording stopped, right?
I did stop it, then I started again. I paused at the beginning because like when I have to like scratch my nose or whatever, then it's not good to record that. But see, now
Would
I'm
you
talking about it, which is
would you mind co-hosting me in case I can help at all with muting and stuff?
sure. Okay. Well, here we are all together again. I'm trusting we're not missing anybody. Um,
Uh,
okay. Well, I guess here we are. Step one on the cusp of step two. I think we'll begin our exploration of step two today. But being very clear that of course we never leave step one. We'll be talking about step one probably in every single one that we do, right? Because we don't ever want to lose touch with that. I think last week, if I'm not mistaken, I gave you the analogy of the conveyor belt. It's like, the more things that you put on the conveyor belt through powerlessness, the more things can get resolved and you can move forward on. So remember, it's a dance. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we want to keep doing one. Okay. That having been said, I guess there's an assignment I thought of in the middle of the week that I wish I'd given you, but I will give you now for next week. So we'll get started on step two, but we'll do one more assignment for step one, and that is, I guess, two-pronged. I want you to start to write down all the things that you are powerless over, right? And this fits with the um, the sort of practice of step one, right? Which is to recognize and see the things that you are powerless over. And hopefully your understanding and your application of what you are powerless over is growing by the minute. And then as part of that, you want to add, um, I think I had you start a parts list last week, did I not? Yeah. So you especially want to pay attention to the parts. You want the parts, especially on your powerless list, because these are the things ultimately that you're really powerless over. These voices in your head that have this strong emotional component that force you to take actions or not take actions because they seem so true, even though they are not. Um, so I guess I'd like to sort of start with your guys' experience of trying to put step one into action this week. Were you conscious of it? Did you forget all about it? Did you try to apply it and have trouble? Were you able to apply it? And if so, how? Any and all of these are suitable subjects for you guys to touch on for anybody um, who wants to share, who has the courage
I'll
to
share.
share. All right, Kate, Miss
Um,
Courageous.
so this week or last week, I guess, like Wednesday, I started to feel really powerless over, you know, people, a person, and a situation. And I started to spiral a little bit, like not spiral, just get real squirrely in my head. And it was really uncomfortable. And I I am aware that I'm in new territory, like I'm in a new relationship and um I feel out of control.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm out of control, that's when I start to spiral. And I realize I can't make somebody else do what I want them to do. I either need to communicate what my need is, or I need to just pray go to a meeting, call my sponsor, help another person, jump in service. And I went to 2 meetings in one day and I shared. And, the next day I spoke to my sponsor and that feeling left me, like that the control that I was like out of control. So I wanted to be in control. And so I realized that, I'm powerless over this person. I'm powerless over this situation. I need to pray. I need to meditate. I want to take it to a meeting, take it to God, take it to my sponsor. And then
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
it passed.
Okay, good. So what I would encourage you to do is to apply the steps to that, right? So
Mm.
it's like you have the sort of program actions, and that's great, right? You sort of know the program way. And that's just to for those of you who are here and for those of you who are listening, to start to separate the culture of AA from the
Mhm.
steps and the practicing of the steps. These are not the same thing,
Yeah.
right? So, as much as going to a meeting is helpful, that is not practicing the steps. So, there's nothing wrong, obviously, in what you did. Obviously, you got support, you shifted the energy, so great. Um, and what I would encourage is, you talked about, you said one other word that I wish I'd written down, but you talked about the spiral, right? You got into a spiral.
Squirrely. Squirrely.
Yeah, okay. So you got squirrely. So I would start there. And I
Hmm.
would say, I'm powerless over squirreliness. And the goal, believe it or not, is not to get rid of the squirreliness,
Right.
right? It's to recognize and see that there's something going on here that's outside of my control,
Hmm.
right? So in this way, so sort of so okay, you're powerless over the person. Yes, granted, right? And what you said is absolutely accurate. You can't make another person do what you want to do. But there is the desire to make the other person do what you want to do,
Hmm.
right? You're powerless over that. You're powerless over that desire. Why do you want to control what somebody else is going to do? That's a very
Not even
interesting
about
question.
them. It's
What's
not
that?
even it's not even about them.
It
It's always
never is
it was
about them.
always about me. Like
That's right.
what's it, and I realized it was control. Like I want to control something.
Right. And so that's a great question too. Why do you want to control it?
Hmm. Fear.
That's right. That's right. So can we name that fear? What would you call that fear?
Uh, it's like abandonment.
Perfect. You are absolutely powerless over your fear of abandonment.
Hmm.
And the reason we don't want to chase it away, right? And for sure, I could hear just in your story, there's some healing and understanding that happened about this fear of abandonment in the process. And that's what helped it go away.
Hmm.
But to take this sort of system of the steps, right, and to really apply this, to really go, okay, so this is great. Thank you for talking about this and giving us a real world case example, right? So I acknowledge, and it takes a bit of work just to even get down to, like I said to a sponsee at one point, I said 90% of the work is figuring out what the work is.
Hmm.
So just getting down to, I'm afraid of abandonment. That's huge. That's fantastic because now you're dealing with the real issue. And if you can also from there get, okay, fear of abandonment. And I've experienced this fear of abandonment roughly every 2 to 3 years since I was 5 years old.
Uh-huh.
That then it's now you understand it as an ism. When you understand that this psychological condition, this energetic vibration of fear is something that has been with you, and here's the real kick in the pants, it is something that you are essentially addicted to, right? So if we're treating alcoholism or whatever, it's not so much about trying to abstain from that one drink, right? It's trying to abstain from the disease of alcoholism. So in this case, you're trying to abstain from the disease of fear of abandonment. You're trying to understand, right? So you're powerless over that. So now we would now from there, you could start to jump into step two. Now that you've named it and you've seen that it's been going on for so long, and for sure you've tried, I'm guessing, tried everything you could possibly think of
Mhm,
to get rid of this fear as it's shown up in your life throughout your life.
mhm,
And maybe not absolutely everything. And so maybe there are other things you need to try. Maybe there's a retreat, or maybe there's something where you think, oh, I'll finally get rid of this. But it's okay because we can wait another couple of years while you test and explore these other possibilities before you really see that you're powerless. But that's the great thing about the disease. It's patient, it'll wait. It took Bill 7 years of drinking every day for him to go, wait a minute, I think I have a problem with alcohol, you know.
mhm.
So it takes what it takes, right?
Yeah,
So from there, we would go into step two, and just as a little preview in step two. And so let's do this, you and I together for a moment, right? If you're willing, if you want to do this, right?
absolutely.
So see this in action. Okay, so
I'm
here
here.
we are. So here we are. So let's just, can you get in touch with that fear of abandonment?
Mhm,
Okay, good. It sounds like you could pretty easily. You didn't have to fight to get to it. That's a good sign. That's a sign of something that's ripe and ready to change. Like if you have to fight to get to it, that means it's very heavily guarded
mhm.
and protected, right? And you have to do, you have to wade through that a lot more. So okay, you can get in touch with it. And where are you feeling that in your body?
It's in my chest.
It's in your chest. Perfect. Okay. And physically, what does it feel like?
It feels heavy.
Heavy. Okay. Good. Yeah, let's go with heavy. Okay, so it's heavy and it's in your chest. So from here, one of the true tests of powerlessness, right, is I'm no longer trying to work on it. See, like, so what happens when one of these things shows up, when this shows up, can you also feel that there's a part of you that's like, I want to get rid of this as fast as I can? Like, I want this out of here. This feeling comes with it, like, I gotta, it's the same feeling that wants to control the person, right?
Mhm,
I don't like this feeling. I need to change them so it'll change this feeling. That's what we're really doing. Like,
mhm,
this fear of abandonment is so strong. If I can make this other person do something else, the theory is it will change. And I'm going to touch on this because I realize I haven't talked about this, but it will change this feeling.
mhm,
The disease is always encouraging us to take actions in the world to try to change feelings inside of us. And it's very back asswards. Right. So here we are, we're touching this heavy feeling. Now, the opposite of trying to fix, change it, run away from it, control it is to allow it. My
mhm,
verb for steps one and two is to allow. We allow this feeling to be here. We allow the feeling of abandonment to be here. And, for the first time in our life, or we don't do this very often, we start to breathe into that feeling. And one of the things I like to do is just to start to talk and welcome that feeling. If you were to look at this from a Buddhist perspective, Buddha said, invite these things in for tea. You want to sit and sort of have lunch with this, which there's a tremendous amount of fear here, right? Like you can feel that energy, can't you? Of how intense that fear is.
Well, yeah, but I'd like to think that I'm in a new, like I said, I'm in a new space with a lot of this.
Yes.
I'm not the same person I was even a year ago, right? So,
No, of course. Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of, like, contrary action
Hmm.
around it, like, when I do feel like I'm slipping into fear of abandonment, I pray, I use my tools,
Great.
and I don't act out and I don't act in.
Good. Great.
Yeah.
And what we're doing here, right now, in touching this, right? Because that energy lives on, right? Because it just got triggered a couple of days ago or got triggered in the middle of this week, right? So
Mhm,
you're doing this great work and there's still a landmine in your chest, right?
mhm,
That's going to get stepped on, right? And so what we're doing right now in this step two practice is we're coming in and we're disarming the bomb.
mm,
Okay.
mhm,
We're going into this energy. Now, this is for everybody who hasn't done this, this is very uncomfortable. It's a little bit like looking at the sun. It says, I think it's in the 12 and 12, it says each one of these steps asks us to go against our own personal instincts. Our personal instincts, which is our body, our survival mechanism says, get away from this feeling. Our whole life has been get away from this, right? And so, so let's just go through this a little bit here for a second. I think you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. So, in your head, kind of just talk to this part. I'm going to sort of give you words to say, and talk to this energy that's in your chest, and just say to it, "I'm so glad you're here."
Do you want me to say it out loud or?
You can just say it in your head.
Okay.
I mean, it's up to you. If you want to say it out loud and it
I,
feels better
I,
to you,
no, it's fine. I can internalize
yeah,
that.
it's fine. Uh, it's okay for you to feel everything that you're feeling. I give you all the space you need to feel every single feeling that's showing up right now. And I want you to try this. I want you just to sort of put your arms around you a little bit and just visualize yourself giving physical affection, holding this energy, this heavy energy in your chest. Just being with that, let it feel that physical affection, that physical touch. And just picture kind of holding it in your arms, kind of cradling it and rocking it back and forth. And say to it, I'm right here for you. You're not doing this alone. You're doing such a wonderful job feeling this feeling. And I'm so proud of you. Now, how is that part reacting to this when we're talking to it? Is it getting more mad or is it softening a little bit?
Oh, it's a lot later.
Right. It's getting, so you notice it's getting lighter.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Mhm.
So
It's
that
softer, like my everything feels softer.
exactly. And so as we continue with this process, what happens is we just get lighter and lighter. And this is kind of the meaning of step two. Sanity is returned. We get
Mhm.
more clear headed. We get lighter. Whatever intensity is there starts to diminish. And so this goes in hand with what it says in the big book, acceptance is the answer to all our problems today. And what it
Ugh.
says in step two is we relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. We allow God to come in a little bit in a while. And what I would submit to you is as we're touching that part and we're not fighting it, that's the force that's coming in to soften that. Right. And so this is another tool, right? So the tools that you have obviously are working and you're making great progress with this. And this is another tool. And this tool, for me, and at least in my life, is the tool that actually erases this. There's a line in the big book where it says we're restored to neutrality. With these parts, with that fear of abandonment, you can actually get to a place of neutrality where it's no longer triggered
Yeah.
when you bring the steps to bear on this, right? And we just did it here for a couple of seconds. It's just a temp. But the thing to really notice about that for everybody is we walked into this feeling that felt like if I go here, it's going to kill me. That's what it feels like when you walk into something like this. But within a minute or two, everything feels lighter. So you have to get how paradoxical that is. You walk into something that feels like life and death, and then you feel better. That's the promise of the steps. You're restored to sanity. You're more sane than when you walked in. You're less likely to get triggered by this. And you sit with this and you sit with these parts and you bring, your higher power into this. And it does what it's not diffuse the bomb. I guess it is diffuse the bomb. It does diffuse the bomb, over time. You know what I mean? And it's like you can actually live without this.
It
So
also
that's just sort of
dissolves the bomb. It also dissolves the bomb, I
it
think.
does. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So let me take just like a quick little detour in here because I didn't talk about this, but it's a really good kind of segue from step one to step two. I think um, we talked about, and I guess it's not right to bring Course in Miracles into this, but I still love that one phrase, which is, and it fits this, right? Which is, You're never upset for the reason you think you're upset. So a corollary to that is the way the situation, the way your mind is presenting the problem to you is the problem. In other words, the disease wants you to focus on the solving of this situation as the key to fixing this problem. And the problem, of course, is this intense feeling that we have in our bodies, right? And so the classic example of this that I have is I have a sponsee, and he's fairly well-to-do, and they're living in West Hollywood, and they recently rented a house, and the house had termites. And they went to the landlord and they said, hey, this house has termites. And they said, well, whatever happens inside the walls is your issue. And he was incensed. He was so upset. And the reality is, I said to him, I go, so why are you upset? And he goes, it's just like, this isn't right or whatever. And we quickly deduced, it's okay, this is not about the money. This is this person who could drop $3,000 on sweaters in an afternoon kind of thing. So it was going to cost $3,000 to tent the house. What upset him was the notion that this was not fair, right? So the options available to him, the real world options are, hey, I can take this to small claims court and I can sue the guy, I can do all this, all these actions. The disease wants him to focus on the termites, the landlord, and all of that, right? To solve the feeling that he has inside of him, which is that this is not fair. Is the termite situation causing the not fair reaction? It's not. No, no way in heck. What's causing the not fair reaction is he felt like his father was not fair with him so many times in his life. And he's mad about that. So when anything looks not fair, he's actually fighting his father. You see what I'm saying? But now he's acting out this drama in the real world and just creating a frigging mess, getting lawyers involved and yada, yada. But it's not about that. It's not about the termite. It's about his father. And so the sooner that we can recognize that. So what I always talk about is uncoupling the situation from the reaction. The situation is a trigger and a trigger only, and can be literally, and I mean this in all seriousness, forgotten about. Forgotten about. You can forget about the situation. If you deal with the insanity of the reaction, you will get clear-headed and you will be able to know what to do to how to deal with the situation. And people put it the other way first. They always try to solve the situation as a way to get to sanity. And it's totally the wrong way to do it. If you can get sane, then you can act. So I'll give you an example. So I'll give you one more example. So my wife, her big fear is that her sister's daughter is going to have to like come live with us, and that my wife is going to inherit this, right? That's her big fear. So one day she gets a call from her sister or a text saying, I'd like to talk to you about you becoming my daughter's godparent. Whoa! Like this is like her biggest fear come to roost. And so she can't think straight. She can't see straight. She is completely activated, like to the nth degree. And so we started to talk about this in this way. We started to say, of course, what she's saying, she needs to craft a response. That's what the disease is telling her to focus on. I need to craft the right response that's going to answer this. But we did it a different way. We went into the feeling. And this is where my wife developed her way of saying this, which is she sat with the lava, right? So she sat with this lava. And I'd say within, I think it was 18 hours, like of just kind of being with this and sitting with it, this solution came to her, or this idea came to her. And she said, what if I wrote a letter to her and I said that if something were to happen to you, that I would go to wherever the daughter is, and I would create a plan for the absolute best thing, because I don't know what the best thing to do would be. And so that came out effortlessly. She sent it to her sister. Her sister was grateful to hear that. And it all kind of dissolved itself. But had she gone the other way and stayed insane and tried to craft that kind of sane letter, it would have been a week, 2 weeks of absolute hell for her. So, and of course, the whole time she's like, I have to hurry. I have to create a response, right? The disease gives you a clock and it tells you, like, you got to get this done. You've got to send this email back to this person. And you've got to, you know what I mean? There's always something where the disease is pulling you back to the situation. But that's not the answer because that's not the problem. The situation is not the problem. The situation is the deeper trauma trigger. And when we deal with that directly by bringing the steps to deal with it, we can get to sanity and get back to an even flow much quicker with not with healing. And then, like what we're doing here, is we can name and see those parts, and we can actually spend time with these parts, these wounded parts, in a prophylactic kind of way, like a get out in front of it kind of way. So, like take this for example. So imagine you have two children, and one child you spend 10 to 15 minutes with every day, just connecting with them, reading to them, playing games with them. And the other child, you're trying an experiment. The other child, you say, I'm only going to pay attention to them when they have a tantrum in the supermarket. Which child do you think is going to have more tantrums in the supermarket? Right. And so this is the way it is with these parts of us. We take them and we push them into the closet, and we only deal with them when they explode out into our lives. Like in the situation you had, Kate, there was this hugely triggered reaction. But now you know that part's there. So you could, let's say, over the next month and a half, every other day for 5 minutes, every day for 5 minutes, you could spend time with that scared little girl who feels so scared of being abandoned. Because the reality is, she doesn't really care if what's his butt pays attention to him. She cares if you're paying attention to her. And you can do that. It's completely within your power. And if you were to do that, I would guarantee you that the chances of that reaction happening are going to go way, 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 way down. And it's at a certain point, however long it took, that reaction would all but disappear,
Mhm.
and you would see it and you would know it. Like that's what's possible here. So it's
Yeah.
possible to completely change the way that we respond to these things from how we've responded our whole entire lives. And
Well,
I have 15 of these the things that are just kind of gone in my life that used to be these reactions. Yes.
I I did a lot of inner child work, and
Yes.
I feel like I'm coming out of my teenage work and now I'm in my young woman.
Good.
Like it's phases for me. And this young woman that I'm in, because I'm 55, so my young woman is probably like 21,
Yeah.
and like I had a lot of chaos and drama and trauma around relationships then. And it's an old story. It's just,
Yeah. Well, here's what I would say to you about that. Anything that happens at 21 or anything that happens at 14 is always a replay of stuff that happened when you were 4, 5, 6, 7, right? So if
yeah.
you can trace that chaos at 21 and those feelings back to even younger, you
Mhm.
can kind of get it more at the root. Certainly using that stuff, right? Because it really more works backwards than works forward, in the sense of the more you do this, the safer the overall system feels, the deeper the pain you're able to get to. So it's a little bit like spiritual weightlifting. You actually get stronger, and your ability to handle deeper feelings
Uh,
grows. And I don't know if there's such a thing as I got all the way through this. Like Natasha and I have worked together, and one of the things we talk about is it's just ongoing. You get deeper, but you also get, it's not this thing of I've got this work to do and I get it done. It's
mm,
there's always increasing freedom with every piece that I discard, that I let go of. I get more of who I really am back. So for me, it's a practice of a life. Again, it's practicing these steps, because the safer you feel, the deeper and heavier the baggage comes up. And I guess I'll say this just for, I was talking to somebody today. Addiction is a bit of a negative spiral, right? So you act out, and then it creates this shame, which then sets you up to act out again some more, which creates more shame, etc. And luckily we have the steps to interrupt that process and to bring something else into it. And this way of working the steps leads to a very positive spiral, right? So what happens is you find something like, let's say, this abandonment, you uncover it. You know, you've obviously been doing work on it, right? And it shows. You're able to get to it. You're able to see it, for sure. And as we release these things, as we come all the way through the other side of them, and all these things that feel like they last forever are finite. This incredible amount of energy gets released, right? There's this shift, there's this spiritual awakening, which then allows us to see the next thing, which allows us to uncover and let go of that, which then gives us a new tremendous amount of energy, which then allows us to see the next thing and ongoing and ongoing. And there's just increasing freedom. We've all met people who are long timers in the program where this process isn't happening. They've sort of had their sort of break around alcohol and they're applying it to some of their lives indirectly, but there isn't this continued growth, you know, and to some degree, that's what, you know, this whole step work is for. You know, it's for the person, you know, who's been around for 20, 25 years in the steps. And, you know, some of these, unfortunately, these people, you know, put guns in their mouth because they feel like they're doing program perfectly and it's not working. And it's like, this is the next level of that. This is how to continue to bring all those principles to apply to generate more and more and deeper happiness in this kind of endless way, as opposed to, I've got to the end of this system and now what? I don't know what to do, kind of thing. Okay,
I
so
speak to
yes,
something real quick because maybe you can help me
please.
with this. So I struggle with the money program a lot because I feel like I feel spiritually safe and I feel connected to my higher power. And this spiritual malady around money is like so deep. And it, like for me, like I don't feel that sick. Like I don't feel like I'm in overdraft right now and I just like I'm okay. Like and like there's a real like I feel like it's so deep in there that like I don't know what I need because I feel like you know this spiritual I feel spiritual, I feel connected. Like this I work two other programs really hard.
Yeah,
And so when it comes to the money, like I just don't know how to tap into it.
right. So again, just looking at the situation, right? Money is a sort of a manifestation, or if you will, it's an expression, right, of sort of what's going on underneath, right? So so just by looking at our sort of formula and to take the way that the other way we said it, other than you're never upset for the reason you think you're upset, is I'm always choosing a lesser pain to cover up a greater pain.
Mhm.
So so with the money expressing itself the way that it is, that pain of the money situation being the way it is, which I'm sure is uncomfortable and you don't like, that's preferable to whatever else is down there. And so that's what this process is for, right? Is to help you start to see what it is that where the pain is, right? That you're trying to sort of get away from. And
Mhm.
you know, and the thing is like, look, when I sort of hit this stage, I'd worked 4 or 5 programs and was 24 years in, right? So I had a pretty good resume, right, as far as the steps goes, right?
Right.
And I don't know if this is similar for you, but what I saw was I'd done enough work and got to enough sense of safety with God to realize how not safe I felt in the universe.
Right.
Right. Because generally money stuff is about safety.
Mhm.
So, and a lot of it has to do with like the father, right? Sort of. So, you know, like for me, it makes a lot of sense. My dad was a violent rageaholic, right? So I was terrified I was going to die all the time. So it makes sense that it would be a challenging thing for me to feel safe in the world. Um, and one of the big realizations for me, you know, this is probably about 5 years ago, was you know, I trusted the universe, but I didn't believe that the universe slash God really wanted me to be happy. I knew that I was going to be safe and I was going to be taken care of, but didn't really necessarily want me to be happy. And that came directly from my dad. So I guess the question I would ask you, and this is good, you know, in terms of everybody here, um, what was your relationship with like dad, with your dad like, and how, and what was the sort of, where was the fear in that, I guess?
Right. Like I never really had fear. My parents are married 60 years
Okay.
and I like I don't know what happened that, whatever wherever my need wasn't met. I still can't really tap into it because I didn't feel afraid. Like there was no
Okay.
violence. There was no violence.
Okay.
My trauma's very low. I think I had some trauma in the womb. Like I think it started there.
Well, let's go back, right? Because okay, so it's great to hear that you didn't have this like fear and violence and all that. So great, right? Um, and it's funny because as dramatic as my relationship with my father sounds, um, I know people who are more traumatized by sort of neglect. So you were talking about abandonment, right?
Mhm.
Abandonment and neglect are actually much sort of kind of deeper wounds. Like so my dad was like very straightforward. Here comes this raging bull coming at me. It's like it all
Right.
makes sense, right? But my wife, she had parents who were very nice,
Mhm.
yeah, very sweet people, but they just kind of left her to her own devices. And so
Mhm.
the message she got about the universe is the universe is kind of indifferent to her,
Mhm.
right? So you can't look at it in terms of like who has the goriest story is going to be, it's
Yeah.
it's like what you got. Clearly there's something, right? And so for you, so I guess the first question I would ask is what is your reaction to the under earning? What are your feelings about it currently?
I feel like God is just showing me that I'm in a rebirth. Like I need to just completely start over.
Okay,
Like,
good, not a feeling.
oh, not a feeling. Um, I guess if I really had to go deep, it's like shame.
Okay, perfect. That's a good place to start, right? I always say, like, when you're struggling with an issue, find the feeling that you're experiencing now and start there, right?
Mhm.
So I'd say that's where you want to start, right? So first, you're powerless over the shame, and we're going to go ahead and make the leap, and it's almost for sure going to be right that your under earning has to do with shame, right? And so you can begin and listen, you're already in a couple of programs, you're working them hard, you already have a good relationship with your higher power. You start praying and saying to your higher power, and you can do two-way prayer and ask about this, but just saying, I'm willing to see what is causing this expression of under earning. Please show me, right? um and be willing. The thing about it is what you're looking for is the pain. There's pain there, right? And the thing is the under earning, it's the weirdest one. The under earning is the solution. It doesn't seem like it seems like this obstacle, but it is the
Right.
solution.
That's what
It
I feel. I feel that's where I am right now. It is my solution. Like I'm like it's showing me so much. It's
Yeah.
really just like stripping me so raw.
Yeah,
Like
perfect. And what's beautiful about that is you are on this journey. And it's like this journey will take you and bring you where you need to be if you surrender to it. That's why step one and surrender. It's like just keep saying to God, God, I'm willing to go wherever you want to take me. And understand that there are parts of you that absolutely are not willing to do that. That's why this parts conversation is so important, because there's who you are and what you believe. And then there's all the parts that are like, screw you, I don't want that at all. I do not want to feel that. There are parts of you that absolutely do not want to feel what we're talking about. You may be willing. Doesn't matter if you're willing, because you're powerless over these parts who absolutely do not want to feel that shit and will do everything they can to numb themselves out from it, which is why you're having trouble getting to it and feeling it, right?
Mhm.
But the more you become aware of that, the more you become aware of how powerless you are over this feeling and over this feeling hiding inside of you, the more it's going to shift and change. But to become aware of what's really going on, that's your work to sort of invite in and to allow. Okay, I'm going to move on if we can. So I'm gonna talk about step two a little bit.
Thank
But
you.
thank you, yeah, thank you for being willing to talk about all this. I think it's very helpful for everybody.
That was amazing. Thank you, both of you.
Okay, a lot of thumbs up. Good job, Kate. Okay, so let's talk about step two, right? So you guys kind of know the drill a little bit already. So we want to, let me get my thingamajigger over here. Right, we want to go through step 2 in the same way that we went through step 1. Right? We want to start on step 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And we want to look for all of the do's. If you want extra credit, you can also underline the don'ts. That's how my sponsor gave it to me, but I guess I streamlined it a little bit. Hopefully I'm not going to hell for that. I mean, fingers crossed. Okay, so let's look and let's find the first one. The problem is I had all of this marked for myself and then my Kindle got messed up. And so now I have to find it. Let's see. If I remember correctly, there's not a lot of stuff in the beginning here. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So it's a couple of paragraphs in. The first paragraph that I have marked is, at this juncture, his AA sponsor usually laughs. So if you can find that paragraph. Then toward the middle of it, his sponsor probably says, take it easy. So that's our first instruction. Take it easy. And this next line, I've never given it much thought, but it's so in line with the theme of the last couple of weeks. The hoop you have to jump through is a lot wider than you think. People in this process or in life think they have to do such hard work and incredible things, and generally that comes from our disease. What our higher power wants us to do or expects us to do is generally a lot easier than what our mind thinks we need to do or expects us to do. So if you're feeling overwhelmed and all of that and like it's too much, it's probably, you want to check in with your higher power, because your higher power will probably say, yeah, don't work so hard. So then the next paragraph as well says the newcomer, blah, blah, blah. So you're going to read this, you're going to go through it, you're going to find all yours, and then we're going to come back together next week, right? That agrees the sponsor is a very good question indeed. I think I can tell you exactly how to relax. Don't work at it very hard. So you can already see the theme of step 2. The things, again, Bill is just saying the same thing kind of over and over again. And there's a couple of different ideas. This one's not quite as like hammering the same thing. But when you look, you'll see that there's a very sort of clear message in this chapter. So you just want to go through and you want to do that. And I want you to continue to work on step 1 in this next week as you're doing this. And by all means, feel free to take anything that you've seen in step 1 and start to relax around it. And you can listen to this replay of this, and you can use that little kind of meditation we did with Kate of going into the feeling as a way to practice step 2, as a way to relax, take it easy, not try to get rid of this feeling, but rather use it, right? We soon take quite another view of this absolute humiliation. We soon take quite another view of this fear of abandonment, right? Everything gets put on the pipeline. And hopefully, just as time goes on, you guys will start to realize that more and more of the things that you're lifting and you feel like you're having to struggle with are things that you're actually powerless over. Because again, you don't have to work that hard. If you're working hard, it's because you're believing the disease that tells you you need to be working that hard. So if you're up late at night trying to finish a job, I'm not looking at anybody in particular, then somehow your disease has got you there. It's not your higher power will. Your higher power wants you to be chill, relaxed, at ease. And then when something comes up, then we address it with the steps and we get ourselves back to equanimity. This is the template for emotional sobriety. I was telling somebody, and this seemed like news to them the other day, but the emotion, our word emotion comes from emovere in the Latin, and the Latin means disturbance. And that's how I view emotions. I am at peace, I am whole, I am okay, and then a disturbance comes along. And what I want to get you guys in the habit of doing is whenever there's a disturbance, this is a step one moment. There's not, oh, these disturbances are step one moments, and these other ones, these are real, and these are things I need to deal with and take care of. You know, it's like the IRS is going to audit me. I need to deal with that situation. No, the real issue there is the fear that comes up, and I need to practice my steps around the fear. And then when I get to sanity, I will know how to handle an IRS audit. That's using the steps as a spiritual solution to my problem. And the other way is the way of the ego. And so, you know, we're going to continue to get better at all of this, seeing the powerlessness, recognizing it, admitting it, seeing how it comes from the past, seeing how it's been with us for a lifetime, letting go, feeling it, dispersing that energy, getting into sanity. And then in step 3, we'll be acting from that clear place. The biggest mistake I see with most people in program is they're trying to do God's will from a place of total insanity. I see it again and again and again and again. And it's great that they're trying to get their higher power's will for them. But to actually get aligned with my higher power and then act, that's what step 3 is, right? They have, you know, it's like they haven't really gotten into sanity in step 2. They've kind of skipped over step 2 and are going to step 3 because they want to solve it, because the disease, not God, the disease is telling them, I've got to solve this. So that's in terms of practical, real world application, to not believe in your situation, but to deal with the emotional, the feelings underneath it and trace it back to the trauma. That's the essence of practicing these principles as a way of life on this deep level. And step 2 is going to be our next thing. So again, next week, you're going to come with the full list of everything, and then we're going to work on kind of paring it down. But please continue your work on step 1. Keep finding the different parts. And I'd love for each of you to come back and name several parts. You know, it's just like, you know, I have this greedy fixation with wanting to own half of Canada or whatever the heck it is. You know, it's like, you know, it's just like, um, how come this person doesn't call me back? You know, I have a part that says, how come they're not responding? It's wherever you feel tight, wherever you feel constriction, those are the things that we want to name, because until we see the disease, we can't start to let go of it. Until you realize you've got a problem with alcohol, you can't let go of it, or whatever the problem is. All right, any questions?
I have a quick question. You said earlier 90% of the work is finding it.
It's finding out what the work is. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Right.
I love it.
So
Yeah, that
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what that means is, like in your example, getting down to the fear of abandonment, that's the thing. That's the thing. And you could, you know, I mean, you got there pretty fast. I think you did great, right? But somebody could spend weeks or a month. Somebody could never get there, never even know what they're really dealing with, right? You know, like the guy with the termites, you know, it's just like, you know, he could spend a month. He could spend 4 months in litigation. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
you know, so it's like, but getting down to, oh, it feels unfair to me. And that's a father wound. Getting down to that. Once you get to that, the work is relatively straightforward. But seeing through all the illusion can be challenging, because the disease is spinning this illusion, trying to get you caught up in its thing, because it keeps you churning, because that's kind of how it lives. It lives off your life energy, being in chaos, you know, being in turmoil. That's like food for the disease. Yeah, Natasha?
I just wanted to mention on what you just said with the 90% is finding it. A pitfall that I have to watch out for is I'll do all this work and then I'll find it. But that's when self-knowledge can also avail me nothing. And the disease can come in under the auspice of like, well, you found it, great. But that
Oh,
is very different than, like, for example, I had the breakthrough before, last week of realizing that I still have this ball of terror in me that my father will kill me. And I knew that and I felt it and I was like, oh my God, I didn't know this was here and I found it. But honestly, it wasn't until our step work time on Monday when you kept having, you were like, you're circling on the surface. You're still circling on the surface. And then all of a sudden I let myself feel it and like cried for an hour. Like
Yeah.
they're those two things. So I just wanted to mention that because
No, that's great.
would you speak to that?
Absolutely. I mean, no, that's absolutely right. I mean, I say things. I say things all the time, right? To say it's 90% of the work, it's a little bit bullshit. It's like that's the first stage of the work. And it's not like, it's like that's the first barrier, right? So it's not really true that it's 90% of the work. Getting down, I mean, you can't really begin. That's where the work begins. Once you get down to there. So it's like it takes a lot of work sometimes to get there. So again, I'm one of the things I say, and you guys all haven't known me that long, but one of the things I say is you can't believe a single thing that your mind tells you, right? And so that there's a good example of it. Everything's kind of true and not true. So it's true that it's 90% of the work, sort of, but it's not really true, right? Because it's like, yeah, you can get there and say, okay, I'm done, but you're not done. You're at the beginning. You're just starting to now you've gotten down to the work. Now you know what the work is. And so now you have to do the work. So, so you guys can figure out the ratios and the percentages and get back to me as to what those actually are. I don't know. Sometimes, I say a lot of things that sound really good just because they have a lot of dramatic effect because, I'm a writer. So,
It sounds good.
yeah, it does. If you say it's like finding the thing is roughly 37.6% of the work, it doesn't have the same panache. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
I got what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all gesture. See, the thing is, and this is kind of outside the scope of what we're talking about, but there's the truth. And the truth is this three-dimensional reality. And whenever we try to talk about the truth or picture the truth, we cannot really do it. It's incomplete. We can just paint a picture that only holds up temporarily, right? And that's all we're doing. And so we want to really attune ourselves to the truth and not get caught up in the specifics and think that a thought is true. A thought can never be the truth. In the same way that a map of Wyoming is never Wyoming. It's a picture of Wyoming. It helps you navigate Wyoming, but it is never Wyoming. And a thought is never the thing. A thought is a quick caricature. And we want to address the real thing. So if you want to talk about Everest, you want to stand on Everest. You want to look at Everest. Talking about Everest, whatever we say about it is not the real thing. And this really applies to consciousness. This really applies to truth. This really applies to peace. This is why self-knowledge avails us nothing. This is why all the spiritual work that I did, it's great. It's a great adjunct, but in terms of actually creating the spiritual experience, right, which is this direct connection to this source, that's the only thing that matters. If the words are helping you get to that, great. But the words can often be a barrier. I heard one of my favorite speakers one time say, the biggest barrier to God is the word God. Those concepts and ideas can get in the way of the direct, and they did for me. I thought I had a much deeper relationship with God than I did. I had so many ideas. And when all those ideas went away, I then had the direct experience. And then the direct experience, I don't need any of the ideas, right? I'm just there. I'm connected to it. Like, my favorite example is, is let's say you're all blind and I'm trying to describe the color red to you. And I say, well, it's like a symphony. It's like chocolate. It's like, you know, it's like paradise. Do you have any idea what red is? None whatsoever. And you guys could like start groups and you guys could discuss and you guys could, take different sides, and then you'd see red and it would all fall away. All the conversations would stop because now you would know what red is. You'd have direct experience of red. And when you have the direct experience of red, there's nothing to talk about. So the purpose of all this is to have that direct experience of a higher power in the form of a spiritual awakening that just blows everything inside of you out of the water. right? It says it in the big book. It says the whole point of this is to have this complete reorientation of all your thoughts and ideas. So we want all of our thoughts and ideas to be shattered and crumbled, to have this direct experience and to have this sort of divine inspiration. It talks about inspiration in the book. We want to live from intuition and inspiration, which is not knowledge. Ideas are flat, two-dimensional. Inspiration is this direct flow of energy that flows through you and living in flow. That would be a way to say what we're really up to here. Yeah. And in that process, we're tackling this specific issue of under-earning and how it manifests and its particular cragginess. So Kate, I'm looking very much forward to hearing, sort of what you see, next week in terms of the shame that we talked about and what that pain is that's being covered up that under-earning is protecting. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Ooh, this is the longest we've gone. I don't want to break my record of being on time. Did we have a quick question? Because God knows I can talk. But I think yeah. Okay, good. We'll end it here. We're going to end on time again. Yay.
Wow. Thank you, Ev. That was incredible.
Thank you.
Okay, good work, everybody. I'm looking forward to seeing your step 2 work next week, and we're going to keep going, and it's just going to get deeper and more lovely. And also, again, be prepared for the turbulence. The disease doesn't necessarily like us being directly connected to our higher power and living in our power and expressing that power. It wants to stay safe where it is, right? So we're shaking the tree, we're rocking the boat. All right. Cheers, peace.
Thanks,
You,
dude.
Ev.
Bye, Evan.
Thank you. Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, Kate.